socialism so leftist? What was it trying to accomplish? The basic idea of fascism was government control over the private economy and government control over the lives of citizens. That's the meaning of fascism. That's what it is. That's what the Nazis were all about, the National Socialist Party. In my movie, well, we believe Dr. Ford. We believe Dr. Ford. We believe Dr. Ford. We believe Dr. Ford. Well, we believe Dr. Ford. We have some Dr. Ford enthusiasts here. Let me ask you this question. Let me ask you guys this question. Well, okay, if you'll stop chanting, I'll address your point. Here's something interesting. Where is Dr. Ford? You know, this is really interesting. When I noticed that when Roy, hold on, don't shout at me, you'll have a chance to ask questions. When Roy Moore was attacked by all these women, he oppressed me, he did this, he did that, and suddenly, when he's defeated, they all melt into air. This is Karl Marx. All that is solid melts into air. Suddenly, the media, hold on, don't shout at me, don't shout at me, no, you came voluntarily. Did I ask you to come? No, don't shout at me. I'm defending fascism. No, I'm exposing you as a fascist. Because do you realize, I'll tell you how. You asked me a question. Hold on. Are you familiar with the black shirts in Italy or the brown shirts in Germany? Do you realize that they would go to campuses, goons, and would stand in the back of the room, and when somebody tried to make an intelligent presentation and answer questions, they would shout them down, yell at them, try to intimidate them, and count as success if they could get the event canceled and the speaker threatened. But see, the problem is, sometimes you get speakers like me who are not scared of people like you. We recognize your frauds. I recognize that ultimately you are afraid of ideas. You're not willing to engage with me. Yes, you're afraid of ideas. You're not afraid of fascists. You think I pose a threat to you? I'm an immigrant. I came to America with nothing. What threat do I pose to you?
You promoted dangerous, violent ideas that kill millions of people.
I propose dangerous, violent ideas that kill people? Who have I killed? Capitalism? Do you realize that Hitler's deadly opponent was capitalism? Have you read the Nazi 25-point platform? Let me give you a few themes from it. State control of the banks. Do you support that? No. State control of healthcare. Do you support that? State control of education. Do you support that? No. All right. What I'm trying to get at is the fascist ideology is one that is distinctly on the left. Whether or not you personally support it.
Right. It is talking about a race superior to another. You are not saying it's about the left has problems. The left has been co-opted.
All right, hold on. I know. Look, in fairness, there's going to be plenty of time to engage you. But let me just say this: no movement that calls itself a national socialist movement is going to be on the right. And the idea that the fascists are right-wing because they support racial superiority, wait a minute. The guy who showed the Ku Klux Klan movie in the White House was Woodrow Wilson, a progressive Democrat. So progressivism was married to racism at the hip. So don't pretend it was a right-wing phenomenon. It wasn't. Now, let me continue because it segues right into where I was before, and that is I was talking about a scene in my movie, a scene that I think if you didn't know my work, you would find kind of bewildering. And that is you have a group of Nazis, the top Nazis in 1935, who are making the Nuremberg laws, which make Jews into second-class citizens. They involve segregation of Jews into ghettos, outlawing intermarriage between Jews and other Germans, and confiscation of Jewish property. And these guys making the Nuremberg laws, interestingly, you'll see them in the movie, they have in their hands the democratic laws of the Jim Crow South. They have the American laws made by the Democrats, and they are crossing out the word black and writing in the word Jew. I'm not saying that the Nazis had similar laws to the Democrats. I'm saying they got it from the Democrats. They were indirectly influenced by the democratic laws, and they used them as a model. Now, you might ask, Dinesh, the opposition retreats out of ideas. No problem. They can't argue this stuff. It's because they don't know anything, but they have a lot of heat. And the combination of anger and ignorance can only result in outbursts of irritation or fleeing the room. And the intellect is suppressed by this kind of unfortunate process. And it's the job of education to kind of prevent it. But unfortunately, it's become kind of widespread. All right. So now you might say, wait a minute, Dinesh, you're showing a scene of Nazis learning from Democrats, and I have never heard this in my life, and I consider myself an educated person, and I've never read a book about it, and it's not in any textbook in high school or in college, and I concede that's true. So I ask the question, how is this possible? Where am I getting it? The answer is I'm getting it from a whole body of historical scholarship, including the Yale legal historian James Whitman and his recent book, Hitler's American Model, in which Whitman has the transcripts of the meeting and he lays it out chapter and verse. And he's familiar with my work and he has never criticized me in public for this. Here's the interesting thing with Whitman. He's a progressive. He's on the left. He doesn't want to put the blame on the left, even though he knows it belongs there. And so he hides this by switching Democrat to American. Notice Hitler's American model. Hitler got it from America. But these were democratic laws. Think about this. This is the fact that is left out of James Whitman's book. Every segregation law in the American South from the 1880s to the 1950s was passed by a Democratic legislature, signed by a Democratic governor, enforced by Democratic officials, and there is no exception to this rule. Once you plug in that fact, you realize that Hitler's American model should be retitled Hitler's Democratic model. Now, I mention all this, by the way, because this is not just history. The reason we're talking about history is because if we look around objectively today, I think we would have to admit that the fascist streak that we see in American politics, and I admit it's there, but it's predominantly on the left. Who are the people suppressing speech? They come from the left. Who are the people who use the weapons of the state against their political opponents? They're on the left. I'll give you an example from my own infamous case, and somebody mentioned it earlier. I go before the Justice Department. This is the team ultimately headed by Obama, of course, but Eric Holder, and in New York City, Preet Bharara, this fellow Indian guy of mine, fellow of a very recognizable Indian type. If you watch the movie Slumdog Millionaire, he's one of the ringleaders in that movie. A water boy, someone who's willing to do work for the bad guys. And so they sit me down, they go, Dinesh, did you exceed the campaign finance laws? And I go, well, I actually did. I was trying to help a friend of mine, a Dartmouth friend of mine I've known for 25 years. I didn't mean to do it, but I did it. And so I'll take whatever penalty other people get for doing the same thing. And the US government says to me, no, that's not our idea at all. We're going to get you for bank fraud. And I go, bank fraud? They go, yeah, because you took your money out of the bank. And then I go, wow. And then they go, we're going to get you for mail fraud. And I go, mail fraud? They go, yeah, because you put your check in the mail. And it then occurred to me that what was going on was that the US government was using this accordion of federal statutes to redescribe my offense in 6 different ways, attach a charge to each one, and use laws that were designed to get rid of Al Capone and the mafia and ISIS, laws of surveillance, laws of intimidation. If you can't get Capone on murder, let's get him on this technicality. They were using this against US citizens to go after their political opponents. And if that's not fascism, I don't know what is. And I saw it firsthand. Now, racism. A very good question to ask is, where is the racism today? Where is the racism today? If the parties did not switch sides, as they manifestly did not, the proof of this, by the way, is you simply, this is the beauty of living today. We all have a phone, And the left, let's just take the Princeton historian Kevin Cruz, the racist Dixiecrats all became Republicans because of Richard Nixon's tricky strategy, tricky Dick and all that. All right, for our proof, we make a list of all the racist Dixiecrats, and there they are, about 200 of them. These are the people who joined the Dixiecrat Party, or they voted against the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And now we ask, how many became Republicans? Let's count. And the correct answer is 2. One in the House, Albert Watson, one in the Senate, Strom Thurmond, and all the other racist Dixiecrats lived and died and are lionized to this day in the Democratic Party, and there are buildings right here in Washington, D.C. named after them. So this notion that the racist Dixiecrats became Republicans is an empirical falsehood and a flat lie. Now, where is the racism today? People say, Dinesh, are you actually saying the Democratic Party is the same as it was in 1830? No, I'm not saying that. But I am saying that the progressive left has faked the evidence of racism and tried to pin the racist tail on the Republican elephant by claiming that the neo-Nazis and the Ku Klux Klan and the white nationalists are all Trump supporters. Well, what is the proof for this remarkable statement? Has anyone actually done a survey, a poll, a count, provided any empirical data whatsoever to show? I'm happy to listen to everyone answer me. I like that kind of slaughterhouse aspect of the Q&A, so save it for them. But what I'm getting at here is that there is no such empirical evidence in existence. The only proof for white supremacists being Trumpsters is the images of Charlottesville of white nationalists wearing Trump hats. And since I smelled a rat, I've actually done an investigation of the leading white nationalists to a man and to a woman. And if you read my book, you will see that every single one of them has a deep history in the left. Jason Kessler, the organizer of both Charlottesville rallies, longtime Obama activist, Occupy Wall Street guy. That's a fact. And it's a fact known to the media at the time, but suppressed. Number 2, the editor of the neo-Nazi website, Andrew Anglin, is a leftist and environmentalist, hates white people, is open about it. That's a fact. And in the movie, if you watch my movie, I bring in Richard Spencer, the poster boy of white supremacy, and what ensues is an eye-opening interview in which I ask him simple questions that make it blindingly obvious that he is on the far left. Who's his favorite president? They're all Democrats. What does he think of Reagan? He hates him. What does he think of national health care? Great idea. Does he think our rights come from God? No. Where did they come from? They come from the state. And on it goes. And so you're viewing this and it suddenly dawns on you that you have been subjected to the fakest of fake news, a massive public relations con that presents the white nationalists as right-wing when to a man and out of their own mouths, they are all left-wing. Now, if they're not the racists, usually when someone says the racism is over there and they're trying to hide something, what they really mean is don't look over here. One of the things I want to suggest, and I'll leave you with this and open the door to questions, is that the Democratic Party has always been the party of the plantation. The plantation defines the Democratic Party. It always has. By the way, the plantation does not define the founding. There were plantations at the time of the founding, but not so many. It was Eli Whitney's invention of the cotton gin that produced the massive, that was in 1793, by the way, that produced the massive expansion of the cotton plantations. The cotton industry began to spread in the American South in the 19th century, and a political party, the Democratic Party, arose to defend, advocate, and protect the plantation in the North and the South. Now, where's the plantation today? If you read the historian Kenneth Stamp in his book, The Peculiar Institution, he says that the plantation, the old slave plantation, was characterized by 5 features: dilapidated housing, slave quarters; broken families, because slavery was nowhere legal in any slave state for the slaves; third, no advancement. No one gets ahead.